Hi, everyone. So my name is Maxime Beauchemin. I go by Max to make it easy on everyone. And today I'm going to talk about Superset. So I just edited this very slide this morning, like 5 minutes ago, because Superset just got accepted in the Apache Software Foundation incubator. So we're so we're now Apache Superset. So we're super stoked at that. Really, so that's my second Apache project, and really, I believe in the Apache way of doing things, and we subscribe to that, so we're excited. Cool. So I'm going to talk about Superset today. Before I get into that, and this presentation this morning is going to be largely a demo. But before I get into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. So my name is Maxime Beauchemin. That's how you spell it. I go by Max. I work at Airbnb, which is a really great place to work at. We do all sorts of cool data viz stuff. So this is the logo for Apache Airflow, which is my other Apache project, which I started about 2 or 3 years ago. Apache Airflow is a workflow orchestrator for big data, data pipelines and stuff like that. So that's a lot more in the back end. And though I know the audience today is probably a lot more interested in, towards insight and data visualization. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. I started Superset about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago, as a hackathon project. And so I used to work at Facebook. Just this. So at Facebook, I was working on big data computation. So I own a framework that was computing engagement and growth accounting metrics at scale. And to give you an idea of scale, I think I was clocking about, it was like a few centuries worth of CPU years every day at Facebook. So that's the kind of crazy scale that Facebook operates on. And I was doing all sorts of ETL work. ETL work is sometimes quite hard, and you need to do ETL work, in order to do great insight and great data visualization. So sometimes remember the people doing ETL and data warehousing and your data engineers. They do really hard work, and they might need a hug every now and then. So before that, I used to work at Yahoo. At Yahoo, I was working on I was kind of close to doing ETL again, but I was close to the birth of Hadoop at the time, so that was like 2007-ish. And never I would have thought back then that Hadoop would become such like a big thing. I remember thinking it was just like barely functioning. I was so upset at this thing. You would wait for 48 hours for your jobs to run, and then they would fail with some segmentation faults or something like that, and you had to start over. My boss at the time went on to start the company Cloudera, and I remember thinking, like, what a crazy idea. This is never going to work. Like, Hadoop barely works. No one needs that. So anyways, and everybody has the right to be wrong every now and then. So before that, I was working at Ubisoft, where I learned a lot of the data warehousing and business intelligence fundamentals. So I've been doing data for quite a bit. But today I'm going to talk about Superset. Superset is a modern open source enterprise-ready business intelligence application. I don't really like the terms enterprise-ready. That sounds very kind of Microsoft-y, and business intelligence sounds kind of aged too. But that's kind of what it is anyway. So Superset is that. And it is a way to explore your data, create interactive dashboards, and share your discoveries. Superset is not a library. I know you guys use a lot of open source. You probably use mostly open source libraries. Superset is an open source product. So that means that you install it, you allow users to authenticate into it, and people can just use Superset to access their data, much like they would with Tableau, Periscope, Mode Analytics, or other solutions out there. Cool, so the original vision for Superset was pretty simple. So you guys are familiar with all the D3 examples, which I have a screenshot on the right side here. So you've probably done the thing where you take a D3 example and you figure out, you reverse engineer it to figure out the JSON format, and you load your data into it and you tweak it, and then you're left on your laptop with some static HTML file that you don't know how to share. So what I wanted to do was to allow to take data from just any database out there. When I first started, I was focused on Druid. I'm going to talk a little bit about Druid today, but not very much. But I wanted to make it really easy to take data from just any database, do a very small amount of work, and get to these really nice data visualization. I wanted to kind of commoditize a lot of these D3 examples and make them accessible to everyone, including people who don't want to write code or that don't know how to write code. So before getting into the demo, I want to kind of address, like, why do companies like Airbnb get in writing their own business intelligence software and open sourcing it? That sounds like a crazy idea, right? You might want to, you would think we would just buy the best tool out there and use it. And we do. So we do use Tableau. We love Tableau. We use other solutions too. We're a big fan of notebooks. But the reasons why we started to develop Superset and then to eventually kind of scale it, the main reason was that the vendor tools out there didn't play very well with Presto and Druid. And when I say vendors, I guess I'm generalizing a little bit and thinking a lot about Tableau because that's the solution we had at Airbnb at the time and that we still have today. Presto is this kind of big data database. There was no ODBC driver for it, so it didn't play very well with most of the tools out there. And Druid, briefly, Druid is a database with a lot of buzzwords. So it is a in-memory, column-oriented, real-time, super fast database that can, in which you can query billions of rows in under a few seconds. So Druid was going to be our real-time solution, and there was really no tools out there at the time that worked well with Druid. So both of that kind of legitimized building something. I guess hackathon, when it's hackathon time, you can do whatever you want. So that's how it started. Vendors, there's not a lot of vendors out there that offer good support for real-time and not real-time within a cohesive platform. So that was a rationale too. We definitely want to control our destiny. That's why big companies like to commit to open source, because if something goes wrong, they can fork. They can, we can write a patch, or we can maintain our own fork where we can integrate these tools very well within our stack. So that's really important to us. And there was really no good open source solutions in that space at the time. In terms of, there's a lot of really good packages out there. There's a lot of good libraries. But as far as a business intelligence, enterprise-ready open source product, there was not much of that. So we kind of slowly got more and more ambitious and slid into that space. And we're builders, right? Like, we hire engineers that like to build stuff. And personally, I don't want to be a Tableau administrator. I definitely want to be someone who writes software. Cool. So I think this is the last slide before the demo. So this is like Airbnb's data infrastructure to try to situate. So to try to situate exactly where Superset fits in. So quick overview, we have 2 Hadoop clusters. We use Hive heavily at Airbnb for ETL, or for those not familiar with ETL, and I've said the word a few times already, but for extraction, transformation, and load of data. We use this gold cluster as our main compute and very kind of safe space for all of our core stuff and all of our core processes and core data. And we replicate all of that to Silver, which acts more as a playground for data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, where people have sandboxes and can derive the hell out of all of this data that is generated. Most of our data sources, or the data comes from MySQL or MySQL production databases scrapes, as well as event logging. So we do event logging over Kafka, using Thrift for schema enforcements. And this data can either get loaded into Hadoop and HDFS, or it can take that other down arrow and go straight into Druid in real time, where we can query it with Superset. Superset plays nicely with Druid, plays nicely with Presto. What I don't show in this diagram is that it also plays neatly with all of our Postgres and MySQL databases that we have laying around. So we use those as a source too. It's really easy to register different sources in Superset and to enable people to query and visualize the data within these different data sources. All of this, so the Airflow scheduling layer at the top is the orchestrator that kind of orchestrate our 50, 60,000 jobs that run every day. We have some Spark, and then some Tableau. We have a fair amount of use cases for Tableau, and I guess a shrinking number of use cases as Superset becomes more popular internally, and Tableau is kind of slipping, just because I guess Superset is easier to use and it's lower friction. So a lot of people prefer it at this point in time. All right. So I'm going to enter the live demo portion of this presentation and hope that everything is going to go smoothly. All right. So for this demo, I'm going to go quickly through most of the main views in the application to just kind of show you how Superset works. So I'm going to start by loading just a simple dashboard, and I'll start from the higher level and kind of drill into a little bit more detail. So you can see here that we support different types of charts, kind of what you would expect, the basic type of charts and some less basic type of chart. This is a data set that has to do with baby birth names in the US by state. So this is the place where you can move things around and resize stuff and alter the CSS if you want to do that. And you have some options around like auto refreshings and stuff like that. Now I'll just show you a different dashboard just to show a little bit more of the diversity of the different types of visualizations we support. So a few more things here, bubble chart, this sunburst diagram, one of these neat tree maps and a box plot to the right. I wanted to show too that we have some interactivity at the dashboard level. So this is where you can filter individual components and refresh some of the other widgets here. So in this case, it's not really cross-filtering as in the demo just before. It is some more batch. So as you apply the filter, the charts get reloaded with a different set of filters. And I'll show you maybe another dashboard, which is made out of more miscellaneous charts that are a little bit less common that you would typically not find in a business intelligence tool. So calendar heat map. Here we have one of these parallel coordinate charts, a heat map. So for the demo, I have very little data because it's on my local computer, so there's not a whole lot going on here. So this is a force layout type diagram, a Sankey diagram, and this nice integration we have with Mapbox where you can cluster and zoom in and plot a fair amount of data. So that gives you a little bit more of an idea of the diversity of the different types of charts that we support. I think we're committed to support more and more charts. So eventually, more and more of the D3 examples that exist, are going to get integrated into Superset. Now I'm going to go back into a dashboard to try to show that. So any of these widgets in a dashboard in Superset can be the starting point for an analysis. So anyone who has access to this dashboard here can follow this link here that says Explore Chart. And then we pivot from what I call the dashboard view into the Explore view. And this Explore view is simply, on the left panel, you have tons of controls that define, say, whether you want to show the legend or not, or if you want to apply a certain time filter, you would do that out of here. So here I can use, some hard dates or some relative date, like 100 years ago or 2005. It's also where you would define, the grain of the time you're interested in and the time column, so a little time section. This is also where you define, what is the metric that you want to plot, and what is the series that you're interested in. So here, let's say if I'm interested, instead of names, we can look at like boys by state and get a slightly different chart. So there's tons of options here, and these options are different based on the type of visualization that you pick. So if here I go and choose an area or a stacked area graph, I'm going to get some slightly different options that are related to the visualization type I'm looking at. On the right side here, what else? So I guess on the left side, there's like, you can apply your own filters and where clauses, excuse me, and having clause. These filters, I believe if I had turned that on, you could see the distinct value in here and pick one. You can also, like see the JSON that is used behind the scene. You can see what the query that Superset generated is. In this case, we have a series limit. Let me show you here. I don't know if you see my mouse and everything, but there's something called series limit, which means show me the time series for the top 25 state in this case. I could say just show me the top 5 states instead of 25. It looks like it won't change this morning. Let's see. Here it is. All right, so this is the top 5, and what's happening here is that we generate a subquery to figure out what are the top 5 state in this case, and then joining that and then getting the detail for the whole time series. So we generate some pretty basic SQL, but it's nice to not have to type that SQL even if you're a SQL literate. And here, a few more things, something to embed, if you want to embed an iframe into a different application or send a short link to someone. So that shows the Explore view kind of briefly. Now I'm going to show you this thing that we have that's called SQL Lab. So SQL Lab is pretty much just a SQL IDE. So if you do happen to speak SQL, you can do quite a lot of stuff with Superset. So first, you have all the stuff that you would expect from a general SQL IDE. So tabs, a certain set of databases that are viable to you. The different schemas, and then for these schemas, you can go and pick some tables and navigate the metadata for these tables, so you can see, what are the indexes and the foreign keys, and easily, with code completion here, you can type your query, run it, and there's this sweet option too, I guess. Well, so you can see a preview of the data, you can see your query history. So, pretty common SQL IDE type stuff. You can also visualize, so you can go from here and visualize your result set in the Explore view. So what that means is just by the click of a button, you can pivot from your query result into this mode where you can really explore and visualize. So if I could easily from here give a name to what we call a slice, which is really just a chart, and assemble it into a dashboard. So it's pretty high velocity, and that's the main reason why people at Airbnb, use that in spite of Tableau in a lot of cases, just because, you can just fire up the application, point to a data source, visualize it, assemble a dashboard, and kind of move on with your day. I'm going to show a few other things as part of this demo. I think I'm doing pretty good on time, so I guess I can, have a slightly longer demo. So we have this security menu, and when I said enterprise ready earlier, I meant that we really can, you can define users and groups and roles with very granular permissions that have to do with what someone can do within the applications, as well as which data set they can explore and use within Superset. So people can be granted on a per database, per schema, per table basis, and then they can only operate with that data. They would also see, they go into their list of slices or dashboards, they only see the things that they have access to. Maybe I'll show briefly something that's going on behind the scene here, which is our small semantic layer. So behind the scene, you have to configure your data sources or tables. And this is where here, in the case of like this very simple table, which is only 2 fields, you define which fields are filterable. summable. This is also where you would define your custom metrics as SQL expressions. You can also give your fields and your metrics some verbose names that are more explicit to what they really are. So this is our version of the semantic layer. Other tools like, say, business objects add something called a universe. Looker's got this thing called Looker ML, and for us, this is our version of the semantic layer. Note that in Superset, you can only use tables or views as a data source, meaning Superset won't issue joins on your behalf. But you can make arbitrarily complex views that are made out of joins and use those as data sources in Superset. So here we're kind of shoveling that problem of how to generate joins towards our users and telling them basically you can create your own materialized table or your views or materialized views, and we'll use that as a simple tabular data source. So I do believe this ends the demo portion of this presentation. So I'm going to go back to the slides where I have some more information about Superset and how it works and how it's made. So these are the fallback slides in case the demo doesn't go well. But I've never had to use those. Knock on wood for that. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the stack and what is Superset made out of. So the backend is Python, and we use this thing called Flask AppBuilder. It's a little bit of a web framework built on top of Flask. So Flask is a simple, very simple, bare bones web server framework, I guess. And then Flask AppBuilder provides things like authentication roles, CRUD, which stands for create, update, delete, so kind of automatically generated forms. We use pandas. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are familiar with pandas, which is the data frame kind of data toolkit in Python. So in Superset, all of the data that comes from the data sources makes it through a pandas data frame, and it allows us to do things like time series, like window functions and period ratios, and it's a really nice place in pandas to kind of prepare and craft the JSON that is going to be necessary for the JavaScript layer. We also use this thing called SQL Alchemy. So SQL Alchemy is a multi-dialect SQL toolkit, and happens to be also an ORM written in Python, and is extremely powerful. And the cool thing with it is that we can just write SQL using the API they provide, and SQL Alchemy knows to translate the SQL into pretty much any SQL dialect out there. So that means that is the means by which we can talk to support all the different databases. So I'll name a few that the community uses quite a bit. So at Airbnb we use Hive, Presto, and Druid as some of the main data sources. People in the community use things like Vertica, Redshift, Postgres. We use MySQL as well. Teradata, Oracle, pretty much like anything that speaks NC SQL or close to it will work just fine. From the front-end perspective, and there's probably more front-end people in the room, so we use React and Redux to build the apps themselves. For the visualizations themselves, the abstraction is pretty simple, where on the front end you need to provide a function that will receive data and metadata about the chart, and a DOM element that it can mutate. So that means you can use whatever you want to use in terms of JavaScript package to mutate that DOM. So some of our visualizations are written in React, some of them are written with D3, some of them are written with both. And then we use ES6, Webpack, NPM, so all the common modern JavaScript tools. Probably next week it might be different, but for now this is what we use. A bunch of D3, and we leverage quite a bit nvd3.org, which is it's a a set of reusable charts that work pretty well. I think at the time we looked into using Plotly, and I was more familiar at the time with NVD3, but I could totally see eventually supporting more and more chart libraries over time, including Plotly. Cool. So security, everyone's favorite topic, but it is important depending on the size of your company and the level of maturity of your company in regards to data. Security is important, and not everyone should have access to everything, especially if you think your company might go IPO sometime in the near future. So the security layer is provided by Flask AppBuilder. They have abstractions around how to integrate with OpenID, LDAP, remote user, OAuth. So that means if you install Superset in your organization, you'll be able to pick your authentication scheme. We ship with 3 roles, but you can create as many roles as you want. And these roles are, admin, alpha, gamma. And so there's a very fine-grained level of permissions that you can assemble in whatever way you want to create your own roles. The semantic layer I mentioned, so this is the metadata layer on top of your physical tables or data sources. This is where you can give verbose names and long descriptions for your fields and metrics. You can add calculated fields and calculated column expressions, and you can define how different columns are exposed. So say in your drop-down that is called series or group by, you'll only see columns that have been labeled as such. So we use caching. So it's really important for a BI tool to not be laggy. So when you open a dashboard, you want to see it right away. You don't want to wait for 60 seconds. When I was at Facebook, we were working with Tableau, trying to make certain things load faster on bigger Tableau extracts. And it was pretty hard in some cases to get dashboards to load in under 30 seconds. So here, I showed very briefly earlier that every chart has a corresponding JSON blob in the background. So this JSON blob is what gets cached. The caching layer is provided by something called Flask Cache, and you can use whatever backend you want to use for caching. So Memcache, Redis, S3, file system memory, it works with all of this. You can define your caching timeout on a per slice, per table, per database, or global basis. And to figure out how to set that up, the system will cascade into finding the most granular configuration. The UI is very upfront about staleness. So if we load data from cache, we will show you, there's a little cache label, and if you hover it, it will tell you, loaded from data that was cached 3 minutes ago or 10 hours ago. And it allows users to force refresh very easily. So we're an open source project, and we definitely believe in the power of open source. That's really our edge in that space. By any standard, I think Superset is a super successful open source project already, but this is really just the beginning for us. It's also a very young project. Some of the stars that we have here, and those 13,000 stars are hype, right? It doesn't mean there's like 13,000 companies using Superset just yet. That means a lot of people are really interested in this. Our community is growing extremely fast. A lot of people are forking and watching. We already have like north of 125 contributors. Where we have joined the Apache Software Foundation, as I announced a little bit earlier. So we're incubating now. And we just announced like a partnership with Hortonworks. They've been helping out actually on like going the Apache route because they want to get involved, in projects that are under the Apache Software Foundation umbrella. And I think they will provide like a growing amount of resources. I think now like 3 or 4 engineers, moving forward. At Airbnb, we are 4 engineers working on the project, as well as a part-time PM and part-time designer. So you can only see that this is only going to accelerate from this point, and it's probably a pretty decent time to join the community and test drive the product and get on board with it. So people that have maybe test-driven the product, 6 months ago or a year ago, it might have been a little bit early. Now might be a better time, depending on which type of, like how you want to be involved in the product. So what's next? And so we're growing a community. We're joining the ASF. We want to polish the product quite a bit. So right now, some of the user flows are not ideal. And it's just because we've been valuing velocity or like doing the easy stuff first. But some of the user flows can definitely be improved, and we're going to make sure that we have like a top-notch experience from that perspective. We are also interested in shipping our JavaScript components within a library so people can easily embed them in their applications. We have tons of use cases to do that at Airbnb because we have tons of, we have like more than a dozen little data apps at Airbnb, and these would love to have some interactive slice and dice type components. So we'll definitely ship those components so that people can embed them in their apps. And the idea with that library is slightly different than the libraries you guys are used to, where you would typically craft a JSON blob and pass it to the component. And so in our case, we want for this library to leverage the Superset backend. So that means you could do something as simple as importing a React component that would say, I want this chart, and here's the ID, and here's the domain of my backend. And that's all you would need to do to embed a Superset chart. You could do things like, you remember that Explorer view with all the controls? You could have a React component that would show this with a subset of the controls that are the controls you want to allow your user to play with within the context of your application. So DSL for the semantic layer is also something we're thinking about, so that some of the configuration might live in source control as opposed to in the UI where you click and save, so instead of like web forms. So that's it. So I encourage you to check out the documentation and the GitHub page for the project. This is probably going to be under Apache's GitHub very soon as we migrate towards the Apache Software Foundation. And we're super excited for the project. We're growing the community. Please check it out and get involved. We're stoked to onboard people. Thank you. Do we have time for questions? Yes.
Questions? Hi. Is spatial data handled, and if so, how?
So spatial data, right now we have a single integration with Mapbox. I'm not sure if I showed it, and the internet connection is not working on my laptop. The Wi-Fi was working outside, but not in here. So we have this one Mapbox integration that allows for clustering. It's mostly circles on a map now. You can control things like, how to map your numbers to miles or kilometers, or how to size in terms of pixels. We're looking to integrate, I forgot the name of the React Uber project around their Mapbox integration, but we're looking forward to integrate, pretty much expose their API within the context of Superset visualization moving forward. So we're investing in that probably over the next 3 or 6 months at Airbnb.
More questions?
And maybe the direction for that is beyond circles, being able to plot arcs and like arbitrary polygons on top of Mapbox images and multiple layers. So do a combination of like circles and arcs and polygons as layers where it makes sense.
Just curious, for the dashboard views, are the individual visualizations required to share a single tabular data set?
No, and so we decided to not go the direction of cross-joining or cross-filtering. So cross-filter requires that you would have some index, like big JavaScript table on the client side. And there's some challenges there as you explode the dimensionality of that table, right? Like you can easily fall off a cliff in terms of if you do cross-filtering and you're on the edge of what your browser can tolerate and you bring one more dimension that will explode your data set. So we decided to go in the direction of like each chart interacts with the database or the caching independently. So that means you can mix, in some cases at Airbnb, we'll have real-time data out of Druid mixed with MySQL data and Presto data. And the way that the filters apply is if the column names are the same, it will apply filters across the different data sources. I didn't show, but there's also a place where you can configure your dashboard and say, these charts will only react to certain columns filtering, right? So you can say like, if I pick a country, I want these 3 charts to update, but not this one.
Cool. Thank you.
By the way, I'll be around all day too, so if we can't answer all the questions, I'll be super happy to talk about Superset or Airflow or any other things with any of you guys. So.
I work in a large school district with about 140 schools. You mentioned this security. Is there a limit on the number of, I guess, users that you can restrict?
Yeah, there's really no limitations there. One of the great things with open source is that it's free. At Airbnb, we care less about the fact that it's free. We care more about the aspect that we can mutate the tool to make it match our needs, and we can fix the bugs that are important to us. But with open source, it's free. There's really no limitations as to like how many people can use the system. We run in production like 3 web servers right now, but if you wanted, you could scale the system to run as many web servers as you'd want. And really the complexity of your security matrix, provided that you can manage it, within the tool, you can certainly express it in Superset.
One more question?
Thanks. How easy would it be to interact with Superset programmatically, so define new data sources, etc.?
So behind the scene, we use an ORM. It's called SQL Alchemy. So we do a lot of programmatic interactions with the tool, within the tool and outside the tool. So say for security at Airbnb, we have a tool called Gandalf, which is the place where managers grant access to people to different company resources. And we have this integration where we essentially just import the models from the ORM and iterate over the Gandalf configuration and dynamically change that. Certainly for slices and dashboards and data sources, you can do the exact same thing. So that's another great thing with open source packages is that you can totally write a Python script that's like from superset.models import slices and then start instantiating those and saving them. And so basically it's very open and very easy to extend and do that sort of stuff. I'm going to take a selfie, make sure that I get this moment. All right. Thank you.